Welcome to Brave Enough for Love, the podcast for anyone who knows happily ever after doesn't always happen on the first try. Meet your hosts, Chris and Kabrina, two people who've been married, divorced, figured some things out the hard way, and still decided love was worth another shot. They found it with each other. And now they're talking about everything that comes with round two, navigating careers, dealing with exes, kids and blended families, big adventures, sex, and everything in between. The messy parts, the beautiful parts, and the hilarious "no one warned us about this" parts. If you're into honest conversations, real laughs, and the reminder that starting over can actually be better than starting from scratch, you're in the right place. This is Brave Enough for Love.
Hey friends, welcome back to Brave Enough for Love. We have a really dicey topic today, a hot take, dealing with exes. How do you do it? How do you do it when you have another partner? You're in a relationship. How do you do it with kids? Exes. It's the topic of the day. Kabrina, take it away.
So, one of the things that we had a really nice conversation about, and I use nice as fun as possible, is that when you get divorced, you think that you're going to get rid of your ex. Like, I'm finally free of this. And then you remember that you have children. And if you're one of those lucky people, not to say that not having children makes you lucky, but when you get divorced, if you're one of those people who can like literally walk away and never think about that person again, it's a very different situation than for those of us who are tied to that human for the next nth amount of years until our children turn 18. And then we can say deuce.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I mean, even after 18, there's weddings, there's graduations, there's all those things where you are you are intertwined with this person. Um, Hopefully it ended well. If it didn't end well, you still have to learn how to deal with your ex
Mm-hmm.
because with kids, they're going to be in your life in some form or another for decades.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that um, you have to be so specific on boundaries when it comes to what that looks like and what kinds of things that you're going to say and do and how do you communicate and all of these things. And that's where the parenting apps come in and all of these different pieces that we kind of take for granted as when you're married, because you don't have to do any of those things. You don't have to consider which house is which kid going to after school. What do you do if somebody comes home sick and one parent's at work and one parent works from home? And there's a lot of different dynamics that we take for granted in a married situation because you just do what you're supposed to do to take care of your children.
Right.
But when you get divorced, now a lot of those responsibilities that used to be normally it's not a group effort. Normally it's a one person's doing it. And then it's not that person's parenting time. And now we have to figure out what is the protocol for this. Because if you're the parent who always did everything, now you have to go, well, do I do the things and just, it kind of feels like you're not getting credit for it because you still have to like worry about who has parenting time and what days. And, there's a lot of logistics and math around this.
There's a ton of give and take.
Mm-hmm.
My personal opinion is that conflict is bad conflict in this world, in this realm. When you're co-parenting with somebody, it's about the kids.
Yeah.
That's it. And how do you provide the most seamless, easiest experience for your kids?
Mm-hmm.
You don't talk bad. You don't throw shade. You, no matter how much you're hurt, to be a good parent and to be a good person, a good single person moving on from a marriage or a long-term relationship, you have to suck it up. You have to figure it out. Go do the work. Go to therapy. Get healed so that you don't hold those wounds, because your responsibility is to be that parent.
Mm-hmm. Well,
And to do that, sometimes you have to be the bigger person.
yeah. Well, and the whole thing about co-parenting and like cooperation is like the irony that you have to cooperate more
Mhm.
with this person that you couldn't stand enough to stay
You
married
really
to.
do. Yeah.
It just like you go, well, that was fun.
Yeah. And there are times you have to cancel plans because something comes up. And there's a give and take here. If I have something that comes up, I have a trip for work. I need to know that my kid's other parent can be there to back me up, and me vice versa. And that has nothing to do with our um, coordination. It has to do with the best place. How do you take care of kids?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think there's a lot of funny things in here, like how do you pull that off,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think we'll probably get into some of those, but from the top, when you leave a long-term relationship or a marriage, especially when there's kids, you're probably going to have action. Where do you start?
Yeah, and I think you bring up a really good point with the go do the work, go to therapy, all those things, which I'm sure a lot of the people listening to this podcast have heard. And I know I've got a good amount of friends that are like, half of them are like, yes, I'm in therapy and I preach that all day long. That's my church. But then there's a big group of people that are like, therapy? Why would I go to that? And this is like my shameless plug of, there is some things of being able to, how do I get disconnected emotionally and energetically from this person that I was married to for 5, 10, 20 years and now have children with. And so I see a lot of this, especially I love mom Facebook groups because people are so honest in there when they are anonymous. And so you see some of these things of like, I saw one the other day where this mom was talking about how she had a 9-month old and had agreed to part custody with her ex, but she wanted to move closer to her parents that were like 2 hours away. And how do you do that? And what does that look like? And what does that parenting time look like? And, like I've had to explain this to my own kids of, if we lived in different places, like we've done such a good job. I've done such a good job of making sure that they get what they need and that people are where they need to be and that schedules are like they need to be so that it is as smooth as it can be. And, I think that especially when kids, they kind of take it for granted of like, well, but you're not together anymore. And having to be like, well, it could be a lot worse. Let me tell you about other people that I know that have to stay a whole summer away from their parent because that's when the other parent gets their parenting time, or they're back and forth for every holiday and they have to get on a plane by themselves as a kid. And, you know, I feel very lucky that I don't have to do that with my kids because I feel like that to me would be more detrimental and it would just be stressful, especially when you're trying to protect your kids and when they're tiny and you're trying to move them back and forth. So, trying to take all of that into consideration when you're figuring out what is this parenting time going to look like, who's going to do what are we doing, and how are we making it to where each kid is not having to feel like they're going to different houses all the time because there's so many ways that you can do this. There's is it bird housing,
Yeah, bird nesting.
bird nesting. Oh, for our new divorced people.
We'll talk about the pros and cons of that later.
We're talking about it on this one?
Sure.
Okay, cool. Um, because I think that this is a really good topic to talk through because I have a lot of people who will ask me now. They'll go, "What did you do? How did it go?" Because when we went through we were in counseling and then when we decided we were going to get divorced, he's like, "Well, I do divorce counseling." And I was like, "How many people actually do that?"
Mhm.
He's like, "Not many, but it's really beneficial." And I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, that's interesting." So we went through some divorce counseling and
I'm like,
um oh my god, divorce counseling was if you're listening to this and in the midst of divorce, it's worth sitting down and having the conversation of how are we going to do this because it makes you have to think through questions that you normally wouldn't think through. Um one of the best things that I did was not the divorce counseling. It was actually going to all of my other divorced friends and going, "What do you wish you would have known?" And taking detailed notes while we were at lunch together, or emailing them and being like, "What do you wish, now that you've been divorced for a year, what do you wish you would have known?" Because even doing all of that, there's things that I'm like, you, and you know it, I say it all the time. I wish I would have known, fill in the blank.
Yeah.
And that's why we have this podcast, so we can tell you all the things and we can commiserate together. Because there's going to be some of us that are here listening to this afterwards.
So one of the reasons why we started this is both Kabrina and I, we talk to everybody, right? We have lots of friends and associates. And somehow we both became a conduit, a magnet for people that were going through relationship difficulties and particularly divorce. I have a circle of people who emerged from my past life that were all in really similar places in their lives,
Mm-hmm.
out of marriages with children, trying to figure it out. And one of the things that I see is a huge amount of hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you get over that? And I don't know the right answer for everybody. I know in my case, it's a ton of therapy. It's a ton of learning how to do things again by myself. And then realizing that hurt does nothing except prolong pain,
Mm-hmm.
prolong anger, and hurt my kids and hurt me. So I prefer to think about it almost like, it's like a video game, right? Like I don't have an enemy. I don't have an antagonist. I just have other people in the video game that I interact with,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the goal of that video game is to win best scenario for my kids.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Okay, so explain this because you have a really good term that you use.
Not playable characters.
And he says this all the time, and he's like, "This person is a non-playable character." So
Yeah.
like if I get mad about something and somebody's saying something at work or whatever, he'll go, "This person is a non-playable character. All they can do is you can go up to them, they can say the couple of phrases that they have programmed, and that's it." And it that helped me so much thinking about my ex, because no matter how good your separation was, no matter how good the divorce was, which is such a weird sentence to say. Like
Yeah.
it kind of makes me want to vomit a little bit
Yeah,
when I
it
say
does. Yeah,
it.
totally.
No matter
No
how,
matter how good the root canal surgery was.
yeah, yeah, um, you're still gonna have moments when you're like, that motherfucker.
Yeah.
Like, I'll go, "I made babies with that? What was I thinking?" On a fairly regular basis, and I think that that's a fairly normal response because
Yeah.
you're like, that was a part of my life that happened.
Uh-huh.
But then you're like, what? How did that happen? How did we get here? And I think, especially the doing stuff by yourself piece,
Yeah.
is you have to remember that you catered your life around doing something with somebody else, like pairing off and being peanut butter and jelly. And now we're trying to be peanut butter and jelly away from each other. And it's a sticky situation.
As good as the colonoscopy was, like nobody gets into a marriage, nobody gets into a long-term relationship expecting and hoping that there's going to be a breakup at the end of it.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody comes in and tries their hardest. And there can be fault on one side, both sides, but nobody's trying to get to a situation where a marriage, especially with kids, ends.
Mm-hmm.
There will always be hurt feelings. There will always be animosity. There will always be anger that you got to this place. And the best way to deal with that for me is to think like, okay, these are people that I interact with, right? And I'm not saying this just about my ex. I do this a lot. I do this in my work life, in my personal life. I have to interact with these people. I have to be cordial. I have to do the right thing to make the agreement, to get the deal done, to
Mm-hmm.
move forward, right? And with friends that I am close with and have talked through tumultuous divorce situations, the anger still boils.
Mm-hmm.
And what I always say is you have to get to a place where that interaction is necessary, and it doesn't have to be fun, but it has to be cordial, it has to be clear, And it has to not have anger interlaced with it.
Mm-hmm.
Anger breeds anger. It makes a short conversation long, then texts become long text chains filled with expletives. You don't need to be that fucking, you're dealing with it for a purpose. That is a non-playable character in your life. You have to interact in order to buy vegetables at the fair, in the role play game. But then you move on to your quest.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think comparing it to work confrontation is a really good way to
Yeah,
look at it
yeah.
because it makes it easier. There's so many emotions wrapped up in the other person. And because you still have to deal with them all the time, I think that there's this, you get through the divorce process and you're like, oh my God, I'm done. I'm free. And then you remember that Johnny has to go back with that ex of yours.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, shit. What do we do now?
Yep.
Because now I have to like coordinate this. And then other partners get involved, and now there's more dynamics and more people to consider of who's doing what. So there's a lot of moving pieces here that nobody talks about. Everybody just goes, well, if your marriage isn't going well, get divorced and everything will be better. And then you get out of it and you're on this side and you're like, nobody said that. Nobody mentioned the amount of craziness of taking my kid to the doctor and spending money and then having to put expenses into a thing because now I have to do accounting
Yep.
and now I have to do all these extra tasks that I did not prepare for. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know. There's no course in how to be divorced well. Now there's a podcast though, and
Right here.
I hear the people are
We're
really good
working on it.
looking.
Do you know people who have remained friends or become friends after a divorce with children? To me, that's kind of mystifying.
I personally do not know anyone. I
Okay.
have seen people on the internet that say that
I
they
think that's
are,
fake.
but I swear to God, you watch their relationships and I'm like, they're all sleeping together.
Yeah, right. They look so happy. Oh, there's pineapples upside down in the background. Okay, I
Yeah.
understand. Yeah.
So, it's one of those things of I sit there and I go, maybe that's possible. I have heard long fetch stories where somebody will go, I have a friend who they blah, blah, blah. It just didn't work out. And I sit there to myself and I'm like, how though? Like, if you can be friends afterwards, and maybe I'm just naive in this, if you can be friends afterwards, why didn't it work out?
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't think that especially marriages and especially ones that have lasted longer than a decade,
Yeah.
one person's still in it.
Mm-hmm.
At least in all of my discussions with people, one person feels blindsided. So I think it's really hard to do that. Can you be friendly? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Can you be kind? If that's the bar, that's a great bar.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great bar. And that's you being a really good human being because you're being kind, not because you're trying to make their day better, but you're trying to be an easy co parent to make it easier for your kids.
Yeah. Well, and I hear a lot of people going, well, I was dated this person in high school and we were able to be friends afterwards.
Sure.
And I'm like, I can totally see that in dating
Yep.
because there wasn't kids and finances connected together and somebody going, I love you forever and vowing in front of people in
Yeah.
your family, your friends, nice spending thousands of dollars on a wedding and saying, I'm going to love you forever. I promise I will love you forever. And then one day waking up and deciding that they don't want you anymore. That's
And
very different in a dating relationship. And I hear a lot of people that have come and like gotten in my DMs and people that have been friends with me that go, well, I was able to do it in this situation. And I'm like, you don't understand. This situation is marriage is very different than that boyfriend that you had in high school.
especially making kids with somebody.
Oh, 100%.
I mean, your DNA is inexplicably intertwined for the rest of time and names
Yeah.
and the act of divorce with children is literally like being dragged naked through glass filled with spiders.
Mm.
I mean, it is the most brutal process. taking every little thing and putting it on paper and
Hmm.
figuring out how you're going to split your life up so nobody is complete.
Hmm.
It's awful. So how do we get there? What do we do? Can't control
Hmm.
our exes. You can't control your ex, your future ex, whatever situation you're in. How can you, how can I be the best steward of myself in order to make things smooth?
Hmm. And hold on. If you're single and thinking about dating again, can we not just see what happens this time? We made a free guide called The Second Chapter Reset. It's 10 questions to answer before you love again. Because clarity is attractive and repetition is exhausting. Download it at braveenoughforlove.com/reset. Do the 10, then go flirt responsibly. Okay, back to the chaos. I think it comes down to I have to disconnect myself from that person and not have any expectations of what they should or shouldn't do, or what, even if it's court ordered that they're supposed to do it, I have to be completely emotionally disconnected from it because they're just going to keep disappointing you. Even if they're in the right with what they're doing because it's their new life, to not have an emotional connection to it.
Yeah.
Because the minute that you do, everything that they do is going to be the thing that drives you fucking crazy. The way that they walk up to your door, the way that they say things. Because if they are, you said something earlier of like everybody does their best and nobody goes into a marriage thinking that they're going to get divorced. I think that there's, for the most part, who gets into a marriage who thinks that they're going to get divorced. I don't know that I could vouch for everybody does their best,
Fair.
but I think that there tends to be at least one of the people in the marriage who is doing the best that they can with the information that they have at the
Sure.
moment. And so there's going to be those people who are watching that are like, mine is just an asshole. And he does or she does things that
Yep.
drive me crazy. They're always talking about these other people. I've had friends who are like, they will bring home people and the
Yeah.
divorce isn't final
Yeah.
yet. They talk about all their people that they're sleeping with in front of the kids and, all these different things, these scenarios that I've walked people through. And so I think that we have to be very cognizant that if you're in one of those situations, it's a lot harder to be disconnected.
There's a whole cottage industry on high conflict divorce for
Mhm.
sure. And if you're in one of those situations, this is where the law does come into play.
And hard boundaries.
Very hard.
And being like, um, there's the Boundaries book by Cloud, is his last name. That's a good place to start.
Yeah.
But then going to therapy and being like, what is a boundary? What does this look like? Let's practice this. Doing it in small pieces. Like if you have a mom who tends to, you know, do stuff or call or show up, doing things with boundaries with people that you are close to
Yeah.
that just do like little irritating things at first and like practicing because especially, and you can answer this for men, but I think especially for women, boundaries are a lot harder, especially if you're a mom, because of the fact that as a mom, you pretty much give up every boundary the minute that you get pregnant.
Yeah.
Because there's literally a human living inside of you. And then they're sucking your boob all the time, you're up all the time, they touch you all the time. You're just completely up for grabs as a human being. And so it flows into every other part of your life. It's easy to go, well, I'll take over this, or hey, I'll just do this. I'm guilty of this. When things start to go awry, I'm like, okay, I'll just take all of it. I'll just do all of it
Yep.
because it's easier.
Yep.
And then you get bitter about the fact that you did all the things and your co-parent didn't come up and finish any of the things that they were supposed to do. And I had a counselor early on that said something really interesting of she was brutally honest, this woman, and she looked at me and she said, I wish that I was married to somebody like you because why would I do any of those things if you've already done it?
That's
And
a terrible relationship, however.
it is. And when she said
Yeah.
it, I was like, bitch, what are you talking about? People are supposed to see, hey, this is a give and take. And, I did these things, so now they're going to do these things. And she's like, that's expectation. And I was like, interesting. But sometimes you're in relationships where you have no choice but to be that person in order to get stuff done. There's only so many times you can put the dishes on the bed before people start going, okay, I need someplace to sleep too.
And that's also a big part of communication,
It is.
is that if the expectation's not being met in a relationship, you have to be able to communicate it.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of boundaries.
And this, I
I
think,
will not continue to do this. We need to meet in the middle. And the thing about the high conflict parenting is really interesting to me. I have a very dear friend who's in a very high conflict situation. Kids are older, so it's
mm-hmm,
a little less impactful, but um, you can't control that person's actions unless they break the parenting plan or the
and
law.
even then you can't.
Well, it's one of the reasons why it's a really good idea to get legal help with a parenting plan is to make sure you cover all your boundaries for things. That
Mm-hmm,
there are some things that boundaries that you're going to preset that you will not cross. Um, but oftentimes, sadly, it falls back on us. Now you have to give extra love. You have to be over caring. You have to provide the extra therapy. You have to. So there's this seesaw act,
mm-hmm,
right? In a two parent and a two co-parent relationship where it's very easy for one side to lean into over parenting to try
mm-hmm,
to compensate for under parenting.
mm-hmm. Well, and realizing that all the studies show that children do better
Yeah.
with one healthy parent than with the married parent that that both of them are falling apart. And that was really what made me finally go, okay, I can let go. Because and I've said this in other episodes, I would have done anything to save my marriage.
Yeah.
And I went to so many counselors and drug us to 6 different marriage counselors in order to try and save it. And I think that when you realize those things, especially for people who are fresh into this, that it's hard. Like another one of these moms groups that I'm in, there was another lady who's like, my 6-year-old's having a really hard time with the going back and forth.
Yep.
It's, that whole new thing of now there's 2 different houses. If you had a cheating spouse, now you might have another person involved that all of a sudden is there. And you're like, okay, well, what do we do with this? And being sure, especially with what you said about having those boundaries in place in the parenting plan, like that was something I sat down and I switched my mindset from this is my ex husband to this is a business deal.
Yep. It's got to be.
And I was like, if this was a business deal, how would I cover my ass?
Yeah.
And how do I make sure that my kids get what they need? And so thinking about things like how long does somebody have to date somebody before they can meet the kids? How long do they have to know the kids before they're allowed to get married? Um, how do I how do we do finances? How do we separate things? What happens when emergencies happen? And there are some things out there that will walk you through some of these ideas, but being very careful to think through all the different scenarios that can happen because you're going to go, oh, well, the kids aren't in therapy right now. We're never going to need to do therapy. 6 months into this, you're going to go, well, crap, everybody's got to go to therapy and this is fucking expensive.
Yeah.
And how do you handle that?
Yeah.
And what do you do when one parent wants to do something like therapy with kids and one parent doesn't? How do you divvy that up? And it's not always going to be fair.
Right.
It's not even like just sometimes it's not going to be fair. It's like just plan on it not being fair.
Hence the problem of being inexplicably tied to somebody for the next decade and a half, right? But you know what? It's not about fair. It's about you are now a single parent and you're going to be the best single parent you can be because
Mm-hmm.
that's our job, right? And I think that there are ways to try to make it so that there's some parity, some equity,
Mm-hmm.
some mutual respect, even if you've had a very hard fallout.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but sometimes you're just you just gotta, it's yours.
Mm-hmm.
You just gotta own it because it's the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that's hard. That's really hard.
Mm-hmm. Well, and we have, I think, fairly opposite sides of the coin when it comes to some of these things that we talk about, which is kind of nice. Um, and being somebody who works from home,
Uh,
I take a lot more of the brunt of things. Like if a kid is sick at school, or, you know, we had to do kindergarten sneak a peek today, which means that I had to take my morning off. And then my afternoon was parent teacher conferences. So, it's like those kinds of things. You just kind of have to go, okay, well, they're only going to be little for this amount of time, and I'm just going to enjoy this, and I'm not going to be mad about it. And I'm just going to go in and be the best mom, the best dad that I can be in this moment,
yep.
even though I'm the one who has to deal with it and it's not anybody else's responsibility.
Yeah.
Because I know at first I wanted it to be fair so bad. I was like, I just want fairness. I wanted to feel like I was justified in, hey, if this is 50-50, we're going to do 50-50. Everything will be 50-50. Because I'm very much, I wanted to, there was a moment in time, I'm glad I did not become an accountant, but there was a moment in time I was on that trajectory. And so there's part of me that thinks very black and white with stuff. And I'm like, well, this and this and this, and logically, this is what should happen. And that's not what real life looks like. That's not what any of this looks like. And so, as somebody who's in this position, thinking through what is a hill I want to die on, and you can't die on every hill, and trying to save the hills that you die on for the really, really important things
Yep.
that you're not going to let go. Because I know a lot of people, I've watched a lot of people, and a lot of people that from my past life, because they would come in and talk to me about it of like, how did you get divorced? Because as soon as you get divorced, people are like, they're either that
Tell
no,
us your secrets.
well, I had a bunch of people at the very beginning who were like nosy little
Yeah.
bitches, like people from church,
Yeah. Yeah.
from like old churches that I had been to years and years ago, that were like, oh my God, you got divorced? What happened? And I'm like, Susan, I'm not telling you. There's no way in hell. And people in my DMs like, oh, I'm gonna pray for you. I
Yeah.
hope you guys get back together. And I was like, if
I
you
don't.
only knew, if you only knew. Um, you should be praying for somebody and it ain't me. But you have those moments with people, and then I found out that some of those people, because there were so many of them at the beginning, and when I say so many, there was like 5 or 6. But in the midst of all of that, it felt like a lot because I was like, oh my God, all these people's eyeballs are on me for
Yeah.
this thing that I don't want to be seen for. And so I just didn't answer anybody. And then years later, you'll see something pop up on Facebook,
Like a podcast.
like this podcast, or, you know, God, when this starts to really go viral and people start reaching out, we
Yeah.
have to
Right.
do, we
Telling
have to
you.
do an episode on that because
That'd
that's
be
going to be
amazing.
That would be fun. I should go back through my messages and be like, hey!
We can voice change them. It'll be fine.
Oh my God, it'd be so
That would be
funny.
hilarious.
So funny. Um, but I didn't realize that some of the people that had reached out to me were in the midst of it and
Yeah.
hadn't said anything yet. Because I was so busy getting divorced, moving across the country, doing stuff with 5 kids, that I wasn't paying attention to anybody else's life, and I forget that some people have more time on their hands than I do. And so one of these ladies who I was, I wouldn't say like super close with, but we were friends. Um, went through a really, really tough divorce with a really abusive spouse. And at one point reached out to me and was like, what do I do? And I was, freshly divorced. Like, when a baby comes out and you have to spank him to make him cry. Like, I
Yeah.
was at that point. I hadn't even like processed the grief that I was in. And she was like, what do I do? what does this look like? And I was like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Here's the couple of things that I'm a couple steps ahead of you on. And, I think that there's so many people in this world that are going through these issues and they're dealing with their exes and they're dealing with the midst of divorce. And some of them just want to know because they're chatty Cathys and, there's those people. But I think it's easy to go, I'm the only one who deals with my ex who's an asshole, or I'm the only one who feels lonely because I'm divorced and, you know, my spouse left or my spouse cheated or, whatever the situation is for you, and seeing what else is out there. Because the more that I'm in Facebook groups, that I'm just in because I'm in there for the community, like just because my kids go to that same school or whatever. And you start seeing people say these things, and you're like, oh, there's a lot of other people going through the same thing, because I think that that's part of this piece of dealing with your ex is we get stuck in, it's only me who's dealing with this. My life is so
Right.
unfair. And then you get into a box, and then that's where those really long text messages come out of. Do not text your ex.
Don't.
Get a parenting app.
Yeah, for real. And they're not all great.
No, they're not.
Stay tuned. Uh, you know, it, you said something that really triggers me, or not triggers me, but it really sparks me. That you want equity, you want this level of fairness. And one thing that I've said to you, and I say to my kids, that makes all of you equally crazy, I think. And I have lots of weird little sayings that I kind of hook onto, is that life is not fair. Fair is a construct of the human mind. There is no such thing as fair. It does not exist. But you can do everything you can to try to make it more equitable.
Mm-hmm.
But life's never going to be fair. And the truth is that you may need desperately to get out of a bad marriage. You may need desperately to get out of a dangerous situation. Divorce is going to be awful.
Mm-hmm.
It just is. It's one of the most awful things you can go through. It costs a fortune. It's going to empty out your bank account. It's going to tear at your soul. It's going to mentally break you. But guess what? You'll get through it. You'll move on. You'll heal. You'll learn these little tips. Reach out to friends. Reach out to other people who have been through it, even a few steps ahead of you. They probably have a breathing exercise or some Zen moment that will help you get through it. And that's why we're doing this, because here we are today and life is really good.
Mm-hmm.
Life is fun and it's bright, and we've worked out a lot of these things, and we have kids that are happy and we're happy. And that's part of bringing this to you guys, is that, yeah, it sucks for a while.
Mm-hmm.
You'll
Well,
be okay.
yeah, and I think that that's a really good spot because of the fact that you there was a moment in time where I was like, nothing will ever feel good again.
Yeah.
Not because I wanted to be back with my ex or any of those things, but it was like, it's this immense sadness that I couldn't put my finger on. And maybe this should be its own episode at some point. Is
Yeah.
how do I process what I thought my life was going to look like?
Right.
How do I go into tomorrow not knowing what my future is? Because there is this unspoken sense of security when you're married, of I know that this person is going to be my person today, tomorrow, and forever. And then one day that's not true. And now you've got this giant cognitive dissonance of, who am I? Am I worth anything? Will anybody want me? Do I matter anymore? And I think that this is where a lot of this X stuff comes in, because instead of just going, I need to wrestle with these questions because they're so uncomfortable, it's easier to just get stuck in blaming and being mad at the other person. And I don't know who it was that said this to me, but somebody was like, you can't just let them steal all of your joy,
Right.
because if they don't know that they're stealing it and you're just letting them do it, and they're winning. And, if you're a competitive person, then we don't want to let them win, and not letting them win means doing the work and doing the healing and reading books like Worthy by Jamie Kern Lima and having the conversations.
We've talked about this a lot. Your anger does not influence them.
No.
They don't know that you're angry.
No.
They're not aware of what you're feeling at this moment. The only one that it hurts is you.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the big key takeaway on this is you can get through it.
Mm-hmm.
You can get through it. You can learn to be relatively functional
Mm-hmm.
in all but the most extreme circumstances. And in those circumstances, you need legal help.
Mm-hmm.
You need help. But there is good on the other side. You get through the hard part. As two people who both would have stayed, who did not initiate the process of a breakup, you have to deal with, I have no identity. My identity is gone.
Yeah.
You have to go find yourself. Go find yourself, and then go find somebody who helps complete your story.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to have your identity intact first.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what this is. That's what this podcast is about. What are the steps that you take? How do you do that? How can we help you?
Mm-hmm.
But look, it works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that us doing an episode on that too, of how do you find your identity? What does that look like?
I don't know. I'm still looking.
What are what are questions that you ask yourself in order to go figure that out? Because I went through a really long process with this, of not knowing who I was at all. Like, I couldn't tell you what my favorite color was.
Oh, we should show pictures.
Oh my God, yes, we totally should.
We should have a montage of you. Oh my God. Talk about a glow up, people.
Different.
Seriously?
So different. But I think that nicely wraps us up of like the X's. And so if you're like, oh my God, no, you did not cover this piece,
Tell us.
hold our beer, because this episode is also brought to you by Tactfulness. And let us know on Spotify so that we can go over those. If you have a story, give us the Am I the Asshole version in Spotify. Write it out in Reddit and send it to us. If you find one that you're like, oh my God,
But in YouTube.
there's a great one. We would love to listen to them, because we would love to read them off and be like, okay, well, what will we do here? And how will we handle this situation? And here's some resources for that. So if you're in one of those situations and you want to come on anonymously, or you found something, we would love to have those, because that's helpful for everybody. Because there's no way, you saw us through this episode, we tried to be as objective and as all-inclusive as possible. But we're not ignorant to the fact that there are really shitty situations, and on the totally opposite side of the spectrum, people who probably do like each other afterwards, which I don't understand. So we'd love to hear both of them, and we'll have a nice little convo about dealing with your exes again, because we do it, and you're gonna do it too. So,
and it'll be okay.
Welcome to the club.
Hit us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, everywhere where your favorite podcasts and videos are stored. We'll be back. We have more cool stuff to talk about.
We'll see you next week.
Thanks, people.
That's a wrap on this episode of Brave Enough for Love. Follow the show wherever you listen so you don't miss what's coming next. If this episode made you laugh, think, or text your best friend immediately, go ahead and share it. Send it to someone who needs it. Drop your questions in the Spotify Q&A, or find us on TikTok and Instagram. We're there, and we're talking back. We'll be back soon with more love, more laughs, and probably more tea. Stay brave.